She owned 17 buildings in Manhattan. Her signature was worth more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes. But on the coldest night of the year, standing outside the city's most exclusive restaurant, Rachel Wright learned that all her money couldn't buy her the one thing she desperately needed: a table. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Rachel Wright didn't plan to spend New Year's Eve alone. The CEO of Wright Financial had spent the past 3 months blocking out December 31st on her calendar, confirming reservations at Le Bernardin, arranging car service, even pre-ordering champagne. But then her business partner canceled 4 days before Christmas. Her chief operating officer cited a family emergency on December 28th. By the morning of New Year's Eve, her assistant had texted at 6 a.m. saying her mother was in the hospital. Rachel read the message while standing in her empty penthouse overlooking Central Park, realizing she hadn't actually spoken to another human being outside of work contexts in 11 days. The silence in her apartment felt different that morning. Heavier. She could hear the hum of her refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic 43 floors below, and nothing else. No laughter. No conversation. No life. She'd built an empire by making ruthless decisions, by choosing conference calls over coffee dates, by prioritizing quarterly earnings over birthdays and holidays. Now she stood in a $12 million apartment that felt more like a museum than a home. She decided to keep her reservation at Le Bernardin anyway. Maybe being alone in a crowded restaurant would feel less lonely than being alone in an empty apartment. She put on her most expensive dress, a midnight blue Valentino that had cost more than her first car, applied makeup with the precision of someone preparing for a board meeting, and took a car service downtown. The restaurant glowed like a jewel box as she approached. Through the windows, she could see couples laughing, groups toasting, the warm amber light that promised everything her life wasn't. But when she walked through the door, the maitre d's expression shifted from welcoming to confused. The reservation was under her assistant's name, and apparently, her assistant had called that afternoon to cancel. Not to inform Rachel. Just to cancel. The maitre d' delivered this news with the practiced sympathy of someone who dealt with disappointment nightly, but Rachel barely heard him. The restaurant was completely booked. Not a single table available. Rachel turned to leave, blinking back tears that surprised her with their intensity, when a voice cut through the ambient noise. A man's voice, warm and unexpected. "Excuse me, miss. We have 2 extra chairs at our table if you'd like to join us." Rachel turned. The man was sitting with a young girl, maybe 10 or 11 years old, at a small table near the window. He wore a simple button-down shirt, not designer, probably from somewhere like Target. His daughter wore a purple dress that was slightly too big for her, like maybe it was a hand-me-down or something she'd grow into. They didn't belong in this restaurant any more than Rachel suddenly felt she did. The maitre d' stepped forward immediately, his professional smile tightening. "Sir, I appreciate the gesture, but Le Bernardin has very specific seating arrangements." The man, Carlos Reed, looked at the maitre d' with patient determination. Rachel sat down, this reservation 6 months ago. The girl introduced herself as Sophia Reed, and within minutes she was explaining the entire plot of her favorite book series, basic human kindness, something about dragons, and a girl who can join us. Carlos apologized for his daughter's enthusiasm. "I don't want to Rachel found herself genuinely listening. You're not when was the last time someone had talked to her about something that wasn't stock prices or merger strategies? Should be alone tonight." When Sophia asked what Rachel did for work, Rachel hesitated. "I run a financial firm," she said carefully, leaving out the details that usually made people either ask for money or assume she was too busy to care about them. "That sounds important," Sophia said. "Do you like it?" No one had asked Rachel that question in years. Maybe ever. She opened her mouth to give her standard response about loving challenges and building something meaningful. But sitting across from this child in her too big purple dress, the lie wouldn't come out. "Sometimes," Rachel said. "But it can be lonely." Sophia nodded like this made perfect sense. My dad works 2 jobs, and he says sometimes he's so tired he forgets what day it is. But then we have nights like this, and he says it makes everything worth it. Carlos was a paralegal at a small law firm downtown, and he drove for a rideshare service on weekends to make extra money. He'd been saving for this dinner since last January, putting away $50 every paycheck, because he'd promised Sophia's mother before she died that they would have one special night every year where they treated themselves like they mattered. Sophia's mother had passed 3 years ago from ovarian cancer. Carlos talked about her easily, without the heavy grief that might have made the conversation uncomfortable, but with a gentle reverence that made Rachel's chest ache. She always said that wealth wasn't about what you owned, Carlos explained. It was about what you could afford to give away. Time, attention, kindness. Those were the things that actually cost something. Rachel thought about her own life. The apartments she owned but rarely visited. The car she drove maybe twice a month. The closet full of clothes she bought because they were supposed to make her feel successful but mostly just reminded her that she had no one to dress up for. When dessert arrived, Sophia asked Rachel if she had any children. Rachel shook her head. I was always too busy building my career, she said. I kept thinking I'd have time later, but later just kept getting later. It's not too late, Sophia said with the absolute certainty of someone who believed the world still held infinite possibilities. My dad says it's never too late to start being who you want to be. Rachel smiled, but inside, something was crumbling. She'd spent 30 years building a fortress around herself, convincing herself that success meant never needing anyone, never being vulnerable, never admitting that maybe she'd chosen the wrong priorities. When the bill came, Rachel reached for it automatically. This was what she did. She solved problems with money. But Carlos gently pushed her hand away. This is my evening, he said. I've been planning it for months. Please let me have this. Rachel wanted to argue, but something in his expression stopped her. This wasn't about the money. It was about dignity. About him giving his daughter the night he'd promised. Rachel nodded and sat back. After dinner, Rachel exchanged numbers with Carlos. Walking out into the cold December night, Rachel felt lighter than she had in years. She didn't feel like a CEO or a billionaire or someone whose professional reputation preceded her everywhere she went. She felt like a person who'd just shared a meal with friends. It felt like hope, but Rachel's old habits died hard. On January 5th, she sent Sophia a collection of the dragon books she'd mentioned. First edition signed by the author, delivered in a custom wooden box. Then she learned that Carlos's car was 12 years old and burning oil, so she arranged for a dealership to call him about winning a contest for a new vehicle. When Carlos called her, confused and suspicious, Rachel admitted what she'd done. I just wanted to help, she said. You and Sophia gave me such a gift on New Year's Eve. This is just my way of saying thank you. Rachel, I can't accept a car from you, Carlos said, his voice tight. That's not a thank you gift. That's something else entirely, and I don't know what it is, but it doesn't feel right. Rachel backed off on the car but couldn't seem to stop herself. She learned that Sophia's school needed funding for their after-school art program, so she made an anonymous donation that kept the program running for 3 years. She found out Carlos was studying for the LSAT, so she arranged for a mentor at a prestigious law school to reach out with guidance. Each action felt justified in her mind. She was just helping, just opening doors, just using her resources to make their lives easier. But Carlos saw it differently. In early February, he asked her to meet him for coffee, and his expression was careful, measured, like he was preparing to deliver difficult news. Rachel, I need you to understand something, he said. When I invited you to our table, it wasn't because I wanted something from you. It was because you looked like someone who needed to be reminded that people still care about each other, no strings attached. But everything you've been doing, it feels like you're trying to buy your way into our lives. I'm not trying to buy anything, Rachel protested. I just want to help. Help with what? Carlos asked. We're not broken. We don't need fixing. Yes, I work hard. Yes, money is tight sometimes. But we're happy. We have a life that works for us. And when you swoop in with your resources and your connections, what you're really saying is that our life isn't good enough, that we need you to make it better. Rachel felt defensive. That's not what I meant at all. I just saw opportunities to make things easier for you. But did I ask for that? Carlos leaned forward. Did I ask for the books or the car or the anonymous donations? Or did you just decide that because you have money, you know what's best for us? Rachel didn't have an answer. She'd been operating from the same playbook she used in business. See a problem, solve it, move forward. But people weren't problems. Relationships weren't transactions. I think we need some space, Carlos said gently. You're a good person, Rachel. I can see that. But until you figure out how to just be with people instead of trying to manage them, I don't think this friendship is healthy for either of us. Carlos stood to leave, then paused. You asked Sophia on New Year's Eve if you'd missed your chance to have a different life. You haven't. But you have to actually choose it. Not with your money. With your presence. That's the only thing that actually matters. He left, and Rachel sat alone in the coffee shop, feeling the familiar weight of isolation settling back around her shoulders. For 3 weeks, Rachel did nothing. She went to work, attended meetings, reviewed contracts, and came home to her empty penthouse. She didn't call Carlos. She didn't send gifts. She just sat with the discomfort of having tried to help and made things worse. In late February, she was walking past a community center in Brooklyn when she saw a flyer for volunteers needed at a youth literacy program. No donations required. Just time. She stood staring at the flyer for a long time. When was the last time someone had asked her for her time without wanting her money? She went inside. The coordinator, a woman named Julia Wright who looked perpetually exhausted and perpetually happy, explained that they needed people to help kids with reading 2 afternoons a week. No special qualifications necessary. Just patience and showing up consistently. I run a financial firm, Rachel said. I'm not sure I'm the best person for this. Can you read? Julia asked. Can you show up on time? Yes. Then you're qualified. Rachel started the following Tuesday. Her first student was a 9-year-old named Miguel Lopez who read at a 2nd grade level and seemed to believe he was stupid. Rachel didn't try to fix him or buy him books or arrange tutors. She just sat with him twice a week and listened to him struggle through sentences, offering gentle corrections and celebrating small victories. It was harder than any board meeting she'd ever sat through. There was no agenda to follow, no clear metrics for success, no way to speed up the process. Progress was measured in tiny increments. A word recognized. A sentence read without stopping. A moment when Miguel forgot to be embarrassed and just enjoyed the story. Rachel found herself thinking about Carlos's words. You have to choose it with your presence. This was presence. Showing up. Sitting still. Not trying to solve or manage or optimize. Just being there consistently, without expectation of anything in return. She didn't tell anyone at work what she was doing. She just went every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, sat with Miguel and later 2 other students, and read. Around week 6, Miguel looked up at her and said, You're really good at this. You should be a teacher. I don't think I'm that good, Rachel said. Yes, you are. You don't make me feel dumb when I mess up. My last tutor always looked like she wanted to be somewhere else. But you just wait. In late March, Rachel ran into Sophia at a bookstore. The girl's face lit up when she saw Rachel. Miss Rachel. Dad said we weren't supposed to bother you anymore, but I wanted to say hi. Rachel's heart clenched. You're never bothering me, sweetheart. How have you been? Sophia launched into a story about her school play and a new dragon book, and Rachel listened with the same patience she'd learned at the literacy center. Before she left, Rachel asked if Sophia would give a message to her father. Tell him I finally understand what he meant. And if he's ever willing to give me another chance, I'd love to just sit and talk. No gifts. No solutions. Just time. 2 weeks later, Carlos texted her. A simple message. Coffee. My treat this time. They met at a small place in Brooklyn, and for the first 10 minutes, they just sat in slightly awkward silence. Finally, Rachel spoke. "I'm sorry. For everything. You were right. I didn't know how to just be someone's friend without trying to fix everything." Carlos nodded. "What changed?" Rachel told him about the literacy center, about Miguel and the other kids, about learning to show up without an agenda. "I spent my whole life thinking that what I did was who I was," Rachel said. "My net worth, my company, my reputation. But sitting with a 9-year-old who just needs someone to be patient while he sounds out words, I realized I'd never actually learned how to just be with people." "That's a hard thing to learn," Carlos said, "especially when you've built your whole life around being someone who gets things done." They talked for 2 hours. Not about business or money or grand plans. Just about life. When they parted, Carlos said, "Would you like to come to Sophia's birthday party? It's nothing fancy. Pizza and cake at our apartment. But she'd really like you to be there." Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. "I'd love that. Can I bring anything?" "Just yourself," Carlos said. "That's enough." The birthday party was chaos. 12 10-year-olds, pizza sauce everywhere, a cake that was slightly lopsided because Carlos had made it himself. Rachel sat on their worn couch, watching Sophia blow out candles, and felt more at home than she had in her $12 million penthouse. On New Year's Eve, almost exactly 1 year after their first meeting, Carlos invited Rachel to dinner again. Not at Lou Bernardine. At his apartment. After Sophia went to bed, Rachel and Carlos sat on his small balcony, watching the city prepare for midnight. "I've been thinking about what you said last year," Rachel told him. "About how it's never too late to choose the life you want. I think I'm finally understanding what that means. It's about showing up differently. Choosing presence over performance." Looking at Carlos and Sophia, at this makeshift family that had welcomed her in when she'd been at her loneliest, Rachel understood something fundamental. Wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or properties or quarterly earnings. It was measured in moments like this. In showing up. In being seen. In letting yourself be known by people who valued your presence more than your accomplishments. What would you have done in Carlos's place? Would you have invited a stranger to join your table? Or would you have kept your special evening private? And if you were Rachel, struggling with loneliness despite tremendous success, how would you have handled the gift of genuine friendship? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more meaningful stories that remind us what truly matters in life. We'll see you in the next one.